Hi, and welcome to another episode of Unmuted, where I have candid connectivity conversations with industry experts. This week's guest is Michael Zeto, Boingo's Chief Commercial Officer, who's here to talk to me a little bit about the company's recent deployment at Hollywood Burbank Airport and how converged 5G and Wi-Fi 7 networks are reshaping connectivity for passengers, operators, and enterprises. Thanks for joining me, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Catherine.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kick it off with why Hollywood Burbank Airport is a good fit for converged 5G and Wi-Fi 7. What specific challenges are you solving for the airport?
Yeah, so let's just start with really, why it's a good fit for just us in general, right? I mean, it's we've been doing this for 25 years, right? And Hollywood Burbank, it's such a cool partner opportunity for us because the company was founded in LA. We've had a corporate headquarters there for many, many years. We have a large presence right on Wilshire. We're doing work with LAX and many of the airports in the area. And so it was a really cool project for us just in general, because again, as we start the company in LA 25 years ago now, coming up on the 25th anniversary, we have a lot of big partnerships there, implementations there, and it was a good fit. If you think about the airport itself, it's a smaller airport, but it's super strategic and has really high end traffic going through there. So they're really looking to elevate the experience. And so connectivity was a really big part of it because, I mean, at the end of the day, everything now is connected. And even though this is it's about a 350,000 square foot replacement terminal, it has to deliver world class passenger experience. While it's preparing for the surging demand from global events like the Olympics and the World Cup. So we have this presence in LA, LAX, and John Wayne and the other airports, and then we have this opportunity, but it's also the timing of it, which is awesome because now you've got this high profile smaller airport that's going through a redevelopment with this replacement terminal right at this exciting time for the region, and frankly for the country itself, right? So our 5G and Wi-Fi 7 and DAS platform is really engineered to deliver secure and seamless curb to gate coverage for travelers. So that's really what they wanted. They wanted to make sure that it was a seamless experience from curb to gate. That the operations and the staff also had the benefit of all of the use cases and the outcomes that improved connectivity will drive, and the applications that you layer on top of it. You have traffic spikes you have to deal with. There's space constraints, and then you need to really be. They wanted us to make sure that the infrastructure was future ready. So really future proofed for what's coming next. So it's an awesome example of an airport also thinking ahead. And when you're looking at 5G and Wi-Fi 7, the way we approach everything, especially in the 130 plus transportation hubs that we have as partners / customers, it's really about a converged network. So that converged network of 5G and Wi-Fi 7 in a single design, a single deployment, that cuts down all of the silos. So when an airport has the opportunity to do what Hollywood Burbank's doing, it's a great time to bring in a partner like us and make sure that you really design a best in class network that's converged, that covers all of your current use cases, from IoT to automation to safety and analytics, to then the future use cases that are coming down the pike. So it's really I'm excited about it, as you can tell, right? I get jazzed about this stuff, especially when I get to work with a cool partner like Hollywood Burbank.
Yeah, it is exciting. And maybe you can more sharply contrast for me, um, what a converged network brings when compared to silo deployments. How does it really improve the passenger experience and airport operations
Sure.
compared to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, look, if you think about how things have been done in the past, it's you may have one provider for DAS, you might have one provider for Wi-Fi, right? And now we have private networks, right? We leverage CBRS to build out private cellular networks. And then you have, let's call it, front of the house or your customer facing Wi-Fi. And then sometimes you have your operations, the back of the house Wi-Fi. So, that's a lot of different networks to potentially manage. And there's RF interference, and again, each group that's responsible for those functions, sometimes has different outcomes they're trying to drive. When you sit down and you really look at, okay, here's what we want to do overall from a strategy perspective as a facility, right? And the experience we want to provide for our retail partners, our passengers, and then our team that's trying to create this amazing experience when you're traveling through the airport. Just really pulling it together and having one design, it cuts down on the cost. It cuts down on RF interference. It makes sure that there's no gaps in coverage. When I talk about that curb to gate, right? I mean, if you have separate designs and you're doing it at different times, you'll find that in airports across the United States, there's a lot of gaps in parking garages and whatnot, right? Think of Uber and Lyft now and how they move that around and about, right? Every airport, not every airport, but many airports are going through redevelopment right now of some sort, adding a terminal, redeveloping a terminal. They're moving Uber and Lyft around sometimes monthly as they do construction. If you don't have connectivity in certain places, it makes it really hard to do that. And from a passenger experience perspective, if you don't have accessibility on your device, then that makes getting an Uber or Lyft even harder. Just one really common but prevalent use case and example with redevelopment, connectivity, making sure you're covered across the whole airport. So, one design, one provider, everything being converged, it's really important.
Yeah, and you mentioned cutting down on kind of network management costs and deployment costs. So airports and similar venues often cite budget constraints and complex stakeholder management as barriers when they're trying to upgrade their connectivity. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about how you're helping them address those challenges.
Yeah, so if you think about an airport, their job is, I mean, airports in general, right? It's in the U.S. there's 2.3 million or so passengers flying on a daily basis. Like I said yesterday, I just flew back last night from Los Angeles to Atlanta, and that I was one of 45,000 plus flights that day, right? And one of those 2.3 million passengers. The there's synergies if you design the network together, being able to leverage the infrastructure, the passive infrastructure for cellular DAS and then a private network, right? There's revenue opportunities for the airport as well that you can highlight. That's one of the ways they're paying for it. If you have that improved connectivity, you can potentially increase parking revenues, right? Cargo, right? If you think about cargo and having connectivity on the aprons and on the tarmac, that's usually not covered, right? So there's revenue opportunities. There's ways to decrease cost when you do it all at once. The carriers certainly like to participate in tier one airports and help offset the cost also. And here at Boingo, the role we really play is designing, building, and managing the networks, and making sure that we do that in a very cost effective and optimized way and secure way, but also working with the carriers to help to fund some of that for the airports. And then, of course, we have a media platform as well that helps to offset the cost of that. So, to recap, when you design it in a converged fashion, you're getting synergies there. You have revenue opportunities in the areas where you now have connectivity that you didn't. And then you also have improved revenue opportunities for things like tenant services, media inside of the facility, inside of the airport. And then you also have the carriers that will, in tier one airports, usually offset some of the cost as well. And then there's also those redevelopment dollars there that the airport's saying, hey, we're adding all this new infrastructure. We have to have connectivity to create these new secure gate environments, the digital that you're seeing with Face ID, facial recognition and stuff. You have to have connectivity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And from an enterprise perspective, what's the most misunderstood aspect of deploying 5G or Wi-Fi 7 today? I imagine for a little bit it's the cost part, maybe with private 5G, but What else is kind of misunderstood?
Cost, of course, right? Because I think, the way the world used to work was everybody assumed that the carriers paid for everything, right? And that's just not the world we live in today. We're seeing much more venue funded because connectivity now is like running water, right? It's a utility and you have to have it, right? To operate your facility to give the passenger experience that you want to give, so that people want to fly in and out of your airport. Every vertical is operating a little bit differently, right? You have office buildings, you have multifamily, you have hotels. It's easy for them to outsource their network needs now, their wireless network needs. So that's probably item number one. They probably don't realize how easy it is to outsource all of this. They don't have to manage it. There's Boingo, and then there's a few others that are strong companies in the space, so they can outsource all that, so they can get the connectivity they need. Second is, whether it's really private 5G or Wi-Fi 7 or DAS, all three with all three tier one carriers, we have a solution that's scalable and cost efficient that can be managed 24/7. So, they're in a smaller office building, you need coverage, maybe not as much capacity. In a stadium or in an airport, we need coverage and capacity. So we can design a solution that's tailor made for that use case, for that enterprise, and get it into a place where, from a cost perspective, they can have an OpEx option, or they can have a CapEx option, or a CapEx and an OpEx option. So getting the right design, helping them understand that, there are third parties like Boingo, preferably Boingo, that can do this, and that there are financial options for them to make this happen. And that's really, the keys.
Okay, great. And for my last question, it's going to be kind of a forward-looking one. Looking ahead, how do you expect converged networks to reshape the connectivity ecosystem? Will we see airports and similar venues eventually running as fully neutral host platforms for all operators?
Yeah, look, we've been in the neutral host business, shortly after we developed the Wi-Fi business, again, coming up on our 25-year anniversary. We acquired a company and got into the neutral host business. So we were really, the pioneers in neutral host in this business model. And at the end of the day, we're constantly brought into venues that have a DAS that's led by a carrier, and it's built for one carrier, right? But as you know, right, any market in the United States has almost a 30, 30, 30, and 10 type of split across the operators, the carriers, from a consumer perspective, right? Or in that range. It's split pretty evenly nowadays. And then you have the cable guys getting into the market. So neutral host becomes really, really important. So we're really bullish on neutral host. It's all about being future focused. One single technology platform with, which will really enhance the interoperability of everything, greater sustainability. I was just at a client site. They have solar. So we're actually powering all of our network off of their solar in order to help them get to their 100% carbon emissions goals. So we're leveraging sustainability options that we have. There's fewer partners to manage, and then you can have confidence in a trusted partner. So we think neutral host is here to stay. Converged networks is definitely here to stay. At the end of the day, we've got the experience to help customers make this all happen. And as I said, we connect more than 130 airports worldwide just in this one vertical of, let's call it, all the different types of enterprises that are out there.
All right, perfect. Michael, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It was awesome to see you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll see everyone next week on the next episode of Unmuted.